All right. Is all the TV's working? I just want to make sure that all of our electronic stuff is working, because that's how most of this is going to work tonight before we start. So.
Let's go.
Thanks, man.
Come on.
Oh.
Catwalk.
Are you guys all set with the numbers and people have called in? You know, what's her name?
Yeah, he should be all set.
Okay. Okay. All right. So we're going to begin this evening by having the public hearing relative to the bond authorization in the amount of $3 million for Phase 1 of the redevelopment of the former Animate property located at 698 South Main Street. So it's been out in the news and on the city's website that anyone who wishes to address this item should have called in. We would have taken down your name and phone number, your address. We'll be calling them back in the order that they were collected, and we will have the hearing that way. You'll be able to be heard in the chambers. You'll be able to watch it live streaming on public access television. I am told that it is possible people calling in will hear a little bit of an echo in the phone because of the way the system is going to work for now. That's just the way it is. So if you hear that echo, it's working. You're just going to have to talk over it. There is still a 5-minute limit, and I will give you a 1-minute heads up, providing we can all communicate with each other, okay? So let's see how this works, and hopefully we'll get it done. So with that, who's going to call off the names of the folks? All right, if we can get started then with the first caller.
Good evening.
Are you there?
Hello?
Larry?
Hello?
Hi, Larry. Can you hear me?
Sure I can.
All right, so we'll do it the same way we do it, just if you're at the podium, if you just want to state your name and address for the record, and then we'll go to the public hearing, and I'll give you the 1-minute heads up.
Thank you, Paul. Lawrence DePillo, 11 Steuben Street, Waterbury, 06708. Mayor O'Leary is proposing to saddle us beleaguered Waterbury taxpayers with yet another $3 million in bond debt to put a new roof on a former Animate building on South Main Street, a building that his administration has allowed to fall into severe disrepair. The mayor is proposing, according to a February 27th submittal, that we pay for design and installation of a new roof with skylights. According to the document, it's believed this building with high ceilings and overhead cranes will garner solid interest for reuse as a large manufacturing or warehouse space. The submittal states demand in the Northeast remains strong for this sought-after type of space. And how many times have we seen that presentation again and again? Let's look at the mayor's record. Mill Street, remember he was going to get the former owners to pay to demolish the burned-out building and clean the site because, you guessed it, demand in the Northeast remains strong for this sought-after type of space. What did Waterbury taxpayers get after spending millions to clean up the site? A proposed ball field and a drain on the city's coffers. And a public-private partnership for food processing that turned out to be all public and no private. And then we taxpayers gave nearly $200,000 subsidy from our general fund. Let's look at the mayor's record on Ansonia Copper and Brass, another factory ravaged by fire. The mayor claimed the owners would clean up the site. Then 10 days later, the city lost touch with the owners. Well, the city was owed more than $300,000 in delinquent taxes and water and sewer fees. Great job, Mr. Mayor. Then he claims summer all of the buildings would be demolished. We paid nearly $250,000 in taxpayer funds for roughly 1/5 of the factory building to be demolished. The other 4/5 and rubble remain. What was that? Demand in the Northeast remains strong for this sought-after type of space. Let's look at the mayor's record. Mayor Neil O'Leary claims the Risen complex sit on prime city real estate on the South Main Street. He says that location makes it very attractive for companies to do business. He's hoping to clean up the site and make it business-friendly for new companies to move in. He says it's time for the city to reap some tax benefits. The mayor said, I think it's time to get those buildings down and get them back on the tax rolls. Waterbury got $1 million for the Risen demolition. Unfortunately, the favorite and not the lowest bidder was given the cleanup job, and the Risen property remains an unfinished work in process. What was that? Demand in the Northeast remains strong for this sought-after type of space. Lastly, we have the infamous former Bristol Babcock complex on Bristol Street in the South End, ravished and falling apart, diminishing nearby property values and negatively impacting the neighborhood's quality of life. Like Ansonia Copper and Brass, another factory ravished by fire. The owners are known, yet the site remains ravaged. Is the mayor waiting to announce once again the city lost touch with the owners? February 27th submittal boasts that demand in the Northeast remains strong for this sought-after type of space. With our nation and state in virtual lockdown, numerous businesses shuttered, workers not knowing from where or when their next paycheck may arrive. Us Waterbury taxpayers must hope for the best and plan for the worst. Our general fund spending and bonding must be utilized judiciously for the good of our residents in these times of financial uncertainty. As guardians of our city's finances, you should propose to have the roof on the former Animate building patched in place until a real private investor shows an interest utilizing the business for reuse as a large manufacturing or warehouse space. Otherwise, with a new roof design complete with skylights like Mill Street, this mayor may decide the site would be best utilized for an indoor ball field or other taxpayer burdensome use, which, like Mill Street, will only further burden us taxpayers.
1 minute, Mr.
I find
DeMillo.
it interesting that the February 27th submittal boasts that demand in the Northeast remains strong for this sought-after type of space, and not that demand in Waterbury remains strong for this sought-after type of space. Please refuse or delay this unwise bond authorization. Please patch the roof in place. Thank you.
Is that it? Okay, that was the only speaker for the public hearing. So with that, we will close the public hearing. We'll call to order the regular meeting of the Board of Aldermen for Monday, March 23rd, 2020. We're going to stand for the pledge and the silent prayer. I would ask that you keep Alderman Kula's wife in your prayers this evening. He's not with us tonight. He's going to hook up on the phone, but she is waiting the test results for the COVID-19. She's working in a clinic, and she's got some symptoms, so they're waiting for the test results to come back. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Alderman Bernelli.
Present.
Alderwoman Cavallo.
Present.
Alderwoman Cotto.
Present.
Alderman DiGioVanCarlo. Alderman Dorso. Alderman Kula, I know, is not here.
He's on the phone, actually.
Oh, he is? He's going to be here?
He's
Okay.
here electronic.
Okay. Alderman Kula. He's here. Alderman Lopez.
Here.
Alderman Matthews.
Present.
Alderwoman Martinez McCarthy. Alderman Nugent. Alderman Salvio. Alderman Sherman.
Here.
Alderwoman Weaver.
Here.
Alderwoman Zimmerman.
Present.
Alderman Pernaruski.
Here.
15 present.
Thank you. We have a quorum. And just to explain, as I said, Alderman Kula and his wife are self-quarantining, but he's not sick, and because of the unusual circumstances, we were able to hook him in by phone, so he can do the same thing the speakers are doing, although he's on a different line, so he'll be live with us throughout the meeting to speak, and he's also able to watch it live streaming. So with that, we will go to, we had a presentation scheduled for this evening, but we're going to postpone it till after we're out of these restrictions. It just seemed to make sense to have as few people coming in and out of these chambers as we needed to have this evening to get the city's business done. So we will reschedule that at some point in the future when we're out of these restrictions. With that, we'll go to public speaking, and the process would be the same. Anyone who had wanted to participate in public speaking should have called in. We will call you back again. Just speak slowly, carefully. Remember, there may be a little bit of an echo that you're just going to have to ignore that, and I will again give you the 1-minute heads up. Okay, if we can get to the first speaker. Hi, Larry. Are you all set? Can you hear us?
I'm all set for public speaking, yes. You
Yep.
want me to start?
Yep, go ahead.
Okay, thank you. Lawrence DePillo, 11 Steuben Street, Waterbury. Item number 7, amendment number 1 to the construction contract for the Waterbury Transport and Resurgent Project. Task number 3, Meadow Street improvements. After your March 9th Board of Aldermen meeting, I emailed each of you a Republican American article dated February 26, 17, titled Waterbury Train Station to Open Indoor Terminal in 2018. Starting in 2018, the former Union Station baggage area, part of the existing Rep American building, would reprise its role as waiting area for train passengers. Work should take place in the winter and should be completed by the spring of 2018. And the city will be reimbursed for the construction costs administered by the DOT. The project entails other improvements, including landscaping, facade renovations, and repaving the parking lot. The total cost would be between $1 and $2 million. Currently, there's granite curbing, new sidewalks, and I hope upgraded utilities being laid along Middle Street. Since it's now 2020 and there's no apparent movement, the first question is, will the former Union Station baggage area serve as the city's train terminal? And are the utilities being installed so we don't have to tear up the newly installed curbing, sidewalk, street, and parking lot to install them at a later date? If not the former Union Station area, then where is the train station? And the same question about tearing up the newly installed curbing, sidewalks, street, and parking lot to install them at a later date still applies. Maybe you aldermen can get the answers regarding the train station before what Waterbury is famous for occurs. Spend a fortune in taxpayer money on a street, then tear up all the good work at a later date and patch in place. The other item is item number 15, overview the water and sewer agreements with other municipalities and your executive session on the Watertown water lawsuit update. Wilkett and all other municipalities should be paying 10% more than Waterbury residents are charged. That equals $2.77 per 100 cubic feet for water and a $5.50 charge for each pipe site to the Wilkett Watertown user. Is it happening? Hopefully someone in city government can produce a document to prove we are receiving our correct revenue. The previous contract Mayor O'Leary gave Watertown prior to now being on a pay-as-you-go was an insult to the water and sewer users in Waterbury. Watertown was being charged 88.2 cents per 100 cubic feet of sewage, and Waterbury residents paying $2.42 per 100 cubic feet. Watertown has yet to pay up, and 2 years later, they're still thumbing their noses at us. Wilkett's being charged even less, 86.1 cents per 100 cubic feet of sewer discharged. Again, we pay $2.42 per 100 cubic feet. 8 years in office, and the mayor has done nothing to raise Wilkett's fees. When is this mayor going to start representing the Waterbury ratepayer, who pays a premium for water and sewage while the privileged class in Watertown, Wilkett, and other towns we supply gorge themselves at a fraction of what we pay? The mayor is subsidizing other towns in addition to Watertown and Wilkett by giving them sewer at cost. And no one has accounted for how much of our capital recovery charge, if any, they are contributing. The question is, who is Mayor O'Leary representing? Because it is obviously not the businesses and homeowners in the city of Waterbury. I look forward to the Board of Aldermen resolving this issue. And thank you. And Paul,
Yes.
to all the people out there, I hope you stay safe and are well.
Thank you. You too.
Good night.
Were there any other? Was he the only one who called in? That's it. Okay. All right. With that, that's the end of the public speaking. That was the last caller. With respect to the executive session, again, because of the restrictions and the distancing and all the rest, we're going to postpone that until we are out from under these restrictions. It's just too hard to move people in and out of here and maintain the 6-foot social distancing. So we're going to do that. And item 15, we'll take those up once we're out of this so that it's easier for us to move around. We can take them up all as a unit. So item 15 will be a hold as well. With that, the next item would be the approval of minutes for the meeting of Monday, March 9th, 2020. Alderman Vernelli, is there a motion?
Mr. President, motion to approve the minutes of the regular meeting held on Monday, March 9th, 2020. So moved.
Second.
Motion having been made and seconded by Alderman Lopez. Are there any changes to the minutes? Hearing none, all those in favor of approval signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no. The motion carries and the minutes are approved as presented. Mr. Mayor, did you want to say anything?
Well, this is certainly different. Good evening, everyone. I just wanted to talk for a few minutes about the Animet building and the request for the bond authorization. Mike LeBlanc will be here for any technical questions that you have concerning the finance portion of it. But I want to talk a little bit about the development of the building. So as you know, it took us forever, but we finally took possession of the Animet property and the 18 acres of land that it sits on. We did the first half of the demolition there based on a grant from DECD. We were able to get grant money to buy the property, and then we were able to get several $1 million to start the demolition. We are on course to get the rest of the money for the demolition for the site. And then, of course, the debt diet came in, and there was some internal political issues up in Hartford that slowed it down. But with regard to the building, so this building was built in the late 50s, and it's a 220,000 square foot building with enormously high ceilings and overhead cranes. There had been several different options for this building. One was to tear it down. Another was to rehabilitate the building. I had visited this site with Governor Lamont. I brought him there. I brought Lieutenant Governor Bysowitz to the site, and I brought the DEC Commissioner Lehman to the site. And all three of them couldn't believe the magnificence of the building. I mean, yes, it has been neglected. It needed a roof quite a long time ago, and the owners from the property walked away from the property, and up until we took possession of the property, we really didn't know what to do with the building. Having said that, we had a number of people, once it hit the paper, that we were undetermined whether we would knock the building down as part of the demolition project or try to preserve the building. We had a number of different manufacturers that had reached out to us during that period of time. Some of them asked to see the building, so we walked down to the building. This is not that much different than the WIC project, quite frankly. The WIC project, as you might remember, I know some of you are new, the Waterbury Industrial Commons project started with a 600,000 square feet of building. The south side was uninhabitable, so that we took that 200,000 down, that portion of the building, but we were able to rehabilitate the other 400,000 square feet, which is now home to Levada, which is one of the major semiconductor manufacturers in the world. 80% of all copper that goes into MRI machines is prepared right down there in Levada. Employs about 130 to 150 people. Atlantic Steel is down there, as well as Precision Wire. It's been an enormously successful project. It was slated as one of the most successful brownfield projects in the 2015 National Brownfield Conference in Chicago, as well as the Pal Park. We feel very strongly, based on the interest from the manufacturing community, that this building is worth preserving. I also, in my conversations with Commissioner Lehman, when he walked in, he said, "What's the city prepared to do?" And I told him, like WIC, we would put skin in the game. The state of Connecticut wants the cities to put skin in the game before they put skin in the game, because they want to make sure that they get the return on the investment that is being presented to them. So we got a price, we put an RFP out, and the pricing came in right around $2 million, but Michael explained the rest of that to you as well. But at the end of the day, here's the story. You know, we feel very confident that we know what we're doing with this project. We did Matico. The city of Waterbury did an unbelievable job at the Matico site. That took 10 years. These projects take 10 years. I'm sorry, but that's what they take. Hopefully this Animet site won't take 10 years. As a matter of fact, that once we get the roof on, the manufacturers that have expressed interest in the building want to fit the building out to their liking. So we'll work that out and we'll negotiate with them at the time. But, you know, at the end of the day, between the Matico site, between the Pal Park, between WIC, you know, this is the future of the city of Waterbury, folks. You know, we have been left this legacy of brownfields. We will be starting demolition at EWR at 130 Freight Street this summer. This is what we're faced with, but this is the only way. You know, previous administrations looked at those buildings year after year, decade after decade, and did absolutely nothing. The key to the success of the future of the city of Waterbury is to take all of these brownfields and move them back on the tax rolls. As important as that is for the grand list growth, it's also important because these sites are providing hundreds of jobs, and it is really changing the face of Waterbury. If you look at King Industries, if I just ask you to just for a second, look at King Industries. King Industries, the former administration was heck bent, on putting a public works facility there. I never liked the public works facility there when I was the police chief, the thought of it, because the traffic is awful there. Now throw in a couple of hundred dump trucks, pickup trucks, garbage trucks, and employees. It's just an impossible area. We thought, once we were elected, we talked about selling that property. We found King Industries. They're investing $50 million there. They finished one building. They got 3 buildings in the ground. They're going to build 6 buildings in total. And now they want the north side property for a research and development plant. And stay tuned. There's other hot things happening in that area. But this is what happens. If you do something, I welcome all the questions in the world on these sites, but we have to move forward. If we don't move forward, your grand list doesn't grow, your employment base doesn't grow. It limits the city's opportunities. I think this administration has done an amazing job over the last 8 years, and it has been enormously successful. And it's a fact. It has been. Sure, people can find ways to criticize it, but I'll caution you. Most of what was said here earlier tonight just simply is not the truth. It's just not true. So it's up to you guys. I'd be happy to answer any questions for you, if it's okay with you, Mr. President.
Yeah, if you'd like, before we go into committees, if you want to just refer the old business item number 2 to the committee of the whole, and we can just have that conversation right now.
It's okay with me, and I know, I know that you're all here. And by the way, before I forget to tell you, this may be the last meeting like this for a while. We're going to try to go to that Zoom technology where you can all do this from home. We're just trying to work out the details of the public portion, of the speaking portion, and all that. So we appreciate you being here, and you're socially distanced apart from one another. But until further notice, we probably won't be back here for the next meeting.
All right. Thank you. With that, without objection, then we'll refer old business item number 2 to the committee of the whole, and then I would entertain a motion to resolve ourselves into the committee of the whole.
So moved.
Second.
Made by Alderman Brunelli, second by Alderman Lopez. Is there any discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no. We're now sitting as a committee of the whole to take up old business item number 2, which is the bond authorization for Phase 1 of the redevelopment of the former Animet property. With that, then, let me ask you this. Is there a motion, Alderman Brunelli?
Motion to approve item number 2, old business.
Second.
Motion having been made by Alderman Brunelli, second by Alderman Lopez. Is there any discussion? Alderman Brunelli.
Yes. Thanks, Mr. Mayor, for clearing up that. Unfortunately, we do have a lot of these buildings in the city, and I'm glad they're going through them, deciding which ones are feasible to fix. And in my mind, the only way to actually lease this building or sell it is to complete it, because the structure is good already. We have the land space, we have interested people in it, plus it'll be going on the tax rolls, and it seems to people that it's a lot of money, but the only way to get that money back is to fix it and get things started on it. So thanks for your work on that.
Okay, thank you.
Further discussion? Alderman Sherman?
Thank you, Mr. President. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. The big elephant in the room, I think everyone is fully aware of what's going on throughout the world right now. Have you recently spoke to interested parties and still feel confident that they are interested in this facility?
Definitely.
Recently?
And to that point, and that's a really valid point, right? People are scared right now. The economy, the market is uneasy. We're going through, look at us. Who would have ever thought we'd all be sitting here like this? It's amazing. I wake up every morning, I can't believe it, honestly. And, and the level of panic rises as each and every day goes by. But at the end of the day, listen to me, we will get through this. And when we do get through this, we will not have skipped a beat. The city of Waterbury continues and will continue to move forward. And by the time this coronavirus is over, that roof will be done and things will be ready. And the people that are interested are not interested in waiting. They have obligations as well where they're located. They have, I'm sorry, but I am not in a position to be able to, I'm not supposed to share any of this stuff publicly, and there are agreements to that, but there is a really enormous level of interest in this building. I was shocked, but as people walked through it and they viewed it, it's got 5 loading docks. It's structurally very sound. They just didn't take care of the roof. And so once we get the roof done, these companies will have an opportunity to fit the building out the way that they want to build the building. It's a unique opportunity for them. So thank you. That's a really good question, but I talked to both of them today, and there's others besides them that are still very interested as well.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'll have questions once Mike gets up as well. Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Anybody else have anything they want to ask the mayor while he's here? Oh, Alderman Lopez?
Thank you, Mr. President. I actually don't have a question, but in no way, shape, or form are my words being expressed to defend you, because I think that you don't need anyone to defend you. But I want to thank you for listening to the community, because I think that we've been in that building together. And some of the folks that are here do not, well, some of us do realize that the community had input into what goes on into this neighborhood. It has been forgotten for many decades, and it's beyond my understanding that anyone who can drive by there, by that neighborhood, can say that this administration is not paying attention to that community. But I guess they can also drive by and say there's no cross on that mountain, right? So that's just the way it's going to be. But I wanted to tell you, to say thank you for letting the community speak to you. You guys should be aware that we've actually had meetings with the community right in that same location, and part of the development and planning is employment opportunities, is workforce. So this has been happening for many, many years. And as I said, I'm not trying to defend my mayor, but I think the administration is definitely paying attention to what's going on in the city. And I wanted to say thank you.
Thank you.
Any further questions? Alderman Matthews?
I want to echo what Alderman Lopez has said as well, but I would like to see some stuff that's actually happening in the North End as well, because that's a community that's just like in the South End, that's had stuff that people want to come back to make it thrive or whatever, and seeing it in the South End makes me happy. But it also, I drive through the North End and I see buildings that are sitting just like that, that we could bring businesses to the North End as well as the South End, because as a whole, we need to work together.
Agree. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Anything else for the mayor? Alderman Zimmerman.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I had some resident feedback, just everyone's really, with this epidemic going on, concerned with spending money, and I do agree that we need to move the city forward. What happens after the roof? Is there, I don't know if maybe Mr. LeBlanc's answering this or you, but as far as money-wise, are we going to have to invest a significant amount more? Is there?
So the way the state of Connecticut has traditionally worked these brownfield projects, in every brownfield project in Waterbury has pretty much been the same way. The city of Waterbury has to put some skin in the game. And so that was the way, when I got elected in 2011, that's the way Governor Malloy insisted that it was done, so that they protected their investment, right? So if we're gonna put our skin in the game, they'll put their skin in the game. We're usually putting in about 10%, Alderwoman. So, you know, in this case, we're gonna put in $2 or $3 million. The rest of the bond money, authorization money, will loosen up for the rest of that project down there. And so we still have a lot of demolition work to do there, some environmental cleanup to do there, and it's going to be a negotiation with the ECD as to what the companies that are going to occupy this building, you know, what the price per square foot's going to be. Are they going to build it out the way that they need it done? Is the state of Connecticut going to help with the Department of Economic Development? You know, but so I can tell you that I don't foresee any major expense down there at this very moment in time besides the roof. But I'm really reluctant to tell you that,
Right.
Because I honestly don't know. I guess it's all going to be a moving, fluid project. When Mr. LeBlanc gets up and explains the finances, you know, the commitment is well within our window of bonding. We are in really good fiscal shape, and we're going to be in really good fiscal shape in 2022 as well, because a lot of debt comes off. So we feel very comfortable that this is the right time to move forward on this, because yes, the economy is going to be in a depressed state for a while, but this will be to our advantage to some degree, because we can really negotiate for really good pricing for whatever happens, because, you know, when the economy is, I don't want to use that R word, I hate that R word, but when the economy is not doing well, we can really negotiate to move forward. And that's really what we've done since 2011. We've taken advantage of the struggling economy and saved an awful lot of money and gotten these projects done.
I appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you.
Alderman Cotto.
Good evening. I just want to say thank you, because I have witnessed the trauma that my constituents have experienced because of living daily in an area that has been neglected for decades. Mm-hmm. And you and your administration have worked diligently to revitalize the South End. And little by little, we are bringing back hope to my district. And you have all my support. Thank you.
Thank you.
Alderman Martinez McCarthy. I got to remember to look out there. It's you guys are all in funny places today, so. Actually, no, you know what? You do need it only because the tape won't pick you up without it. Do we have a microphone?
You want to come up here?
That's what I told you. You can come up to this.
Why don't you come up to this one, Sandy? Sorry.
Thank you. I just wanted to say thank you also, the same as Alderwoman Cotto mentioned. I live in the South End, so I see that area every day of my life. I've been in that area since I was a teenager. So just to see the improvement going on, I'm very grateful for that, and I'm sure the people in that area are too. But my question is with regards to whichever company decides to go in that area, just want to make sure that you get the input of the people in the neighborhood, because we already have many health issues with people around that area, and I don't want anything else going in there that would impact anyone else's health issues. So that's what I want to say. But thank you.
Anything further? Mr. Mayor, I just want to say that I support this as well. I mean, I think that we're facing right now a short-term issue. It's going to seem long-term to us if it goes on for months, but this is not going to go on for years, and I think the investors are going to be looking at it long-term. Financing is going to be probably the lowest. At this point, we can finance this at one of the lowest numbers possible, and I think with construction in Connecticut remaining one of the exempt businesses that can be conducted, you're going to find companies that are going to be interested in doing this work. We'll get them in there, and by the time we get out of this mess we're in now, that roof may be fixed and we can start moving down the road. So I think all in all, you know, just on that portion of it, this is actually a good time to be doing it, not really a bad time to be doing it. And the other side is if we don't fix that roof 6 months, a year from now, we've had a good winter without a lot of snow, but who knows what the summer is going to bring with rain and the further deterioration of that building. I think, you know, as the representatives from the South End have said, that's an important part of the neighborhood down there, but it's also the entryway to Waterbury when you're coming up from Naugatuck that way on South Main Street. It's one of the first things you see as you get into Waterbury, so we should be able to get that fixed up. So I think it's good to enhance the image of the city as well. And finally, you know, you were talking about, I think we're in the 5 to 6% of our debt service on an annual basis from the budget on an annual basis, and we're maintaining that. You know, this will be constructed with some short-term borrowing to get through the construction process and probably bonded almost 2 years out. I think we need to keep in mind that in 2022, a lot of that, what is bad debt that we had a bond to pay for the operating costs back in 2001, 2002 is going to be coming off the books. And this is really good debt. This is the kind of thing we should be bonding for. It's a capital project. This is going to be bonds that will mirror or perhaps even be less than the useful life of this building. So I think when you look at this as a total project for the city's image, for the timing of this, for the cost of all of this, it makes perfect sense to do it now, and I support it for that reason. So,
Thank you.
any other questions for the mayor before we have Mike come up? Thank you. I mean, you can. I'm not throwing you out. You can stay,
no.
but I don't want everybody at the microphone at one time. So. Does anyone have any questions for Mike? Alderman Nugent? You know what, you're going to have to come up to this mic or somewhere, because otherwise we can hear you, but the tape won't pick you up. You can do that one, yeah, just so that your voice will get on the tape.
I know the last time we touched about it on the last meeting, the key number, which the mayor just mentioned as well, and Paul a little bit about that small percentage of our total budget that we should be at bonding. I believe it was 4 to 7%. Correct me if I'm wrong.
Yeah, it's our debt management program is really predicated upon, you know, working within a 5 to 6% range of the overall budget.
Just to enlighten me, to educate me a little bit, how do we come up with that number? That's like the key number to make sure that we stay in that healthy financial fiscal responsibility.
It's really under the framework of, you know, establishing a number that first and foremost isn't something that's deemed overly taxing on the overall budget. I think when we look to the rating agencies, if we were to be committed to debt service at an annual expense, for argument's sake, of say 10 or 11%, that would really be a red flag. That puts a lot of pressure on the operating budget. And on the flip side, if you were, you know, somewhere down in the range of 1 or 2%, that really doesn't provide you the capacity to invest in projects, whether it be in the form of investments in infrastructure, equipment, buildings, or in the area of something along this project's line, where it's an investment that, at the end of the day, its primary benefit is going to be in the form of economic development in one framework or another, whether it be employment growth, whether it be grand list growth, or other, plus the added benefit of converting what is currently a brownfield property back into a productive use for the benefit of the city.
Okay. So this bond would fall within that 5 to 6%, and it wouldn't affect our rating in this particular scenario?
Yeah, none whatsoever. You know, just to put the framework around a number, if we, you know, ultimately bonded the full amount of the authorization, you know, you'd probably be looking at a debt service impact in the neighborhood of $200,000 or $250,000 per year over 20 years. And as it's been referred to, we do have debt coming off the books in 2022, and that is likely the time frame before we next go to market to sell bonds. We just came off of a very successful bond sale in late January, And as far as where the number sits currently within our budgeted contribution, this year's budget has a contribution for debt service of $22 million, and that will be the same number for next year once the proposed budget is submitted. So we, through the success again of this most recent bond issuance, we've really, set the stage to maintain a levelized debt service going forward several years into the future. And as debt comes off the books, that gives us the ability to commit those funds for additional purposes.
Okay. And you just mentioned it, that 5 to 7% relates to about $22 million a year.
Yeah, so our overall annual budget is a little over $400 million, and the $22 million at this point falls right in the middle of that 5 to 6% range.
Okay.
So it's, and we report to this every time we visit the rating agencies as far as pointing out to them purposely what our debt management policy is, how we're looking to continually reinvest in the city, and doing the appropriate due diligence on any authorizations that are evaluated before they're put forward for request for approval.
Again, we're towards the end of March. Our cycle ends, June 30th. Are we, any future projects that we may or may not have to bond, gonna kind of go towards the higher end of that 7%, or would still be good for the rest of the year?
We're not only good for this fiscal year, but for next fiscal year as well.
Okay.
Where that the actual budgeted contribution commitment for the general fund again is $22 million this year, and that will be the same number for next year.
For next year as well. Okay, thank you. Sorry, I was trying to read my handwriting here.
No,
it's kind of hard with no desk. Just, it's a little off topic, but kind of not. What percentage or the amount of bonds expired or will expire this year or next year? I know 2022 is obviously a big year for us. Would you be able to give some kind of projections for either today or the next meeting on the amount of this fiscal year, next year, and in 2022, just for my knowledge?
Certainly.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's it. I appreciate it. Thank you.
Okay. Just to that point, it's, generally the bond amortization period is over a 20 to 25 year period. And, going back as far as, the bonds that are next up really to come off the books are those that were issued in 2000, 2001 timeframe. Those were the deficit financing bonds, as President Penderuski had identified. That is truly, in the eyes of the outsiders looking in, bad debt. You never want to be in a position where you're issuing bonds to cover essentially operating deficits. And once those bonds are fully matured and paid off in 2022, the book of obligations that'll be left will all be for those projects that represent investments in the city, across the board for the multitude of projects. Just referencing the types of debt that we've issued for, think of the school buildings that have been constructed over the years to the benefit of the Board of Education and the students, and how much they've benefited. And, think of the money that's gone into the road and milling and repaving programs and our other road reconstruction projects. And as the mayor had mentioned, think of the return on the investment that's come of the bonds that were committed to the Waterbury Industrial Commons project. They're, in one way, shape, or form, all of these investments and obligations are paying back dividends in one form or another to the benefit of the city and its residents.
George, you got to talk in the microphone.
Let's go. You said this would be a short-term bond, and then when we go to build, or in a year or two?
Yeah, when we'll actually utilize the city's cash reserves to fund the project costs until we next go back to market. And Being that we just went to market this past January, I think at the earliest it'll be 18 months, and in all likelihood, closer to 2 years before we next have a need to go to market to sell bonds.
Anything else for Mike? Alderman Lopez?
Thanks, Mr. President. Mike, how long have you been our finance director?
A little over 10 years, since 2009.
Thank you.
Further questions? Alderman Sherman?
Coming off of that question from Alderman Lopez, do you find that the city's in the best shape it's ever been to borrow this type of money? In general, bonding, with the interest rates and our bond rating currently as it is.
Yeah, with our current bond rating, AA minus, just 3 notches below the AAA rating, the city is in extremely good financial position. When we most recently went to market, our ratings were reaffirmed by 3 major rating houses with stable outlooks. They had, very good comments on the city and its position and its fiscal management reflected in the rating reports. Aside from my comments, and as far as, certainly that we are in extremely good shape financially, I would just point to that January bond sale. We went to market and sold bonds at an interest rate a full percentage point lower than 2 years prior. And additionally, we refunded or refinanced close to $80 million of bonds, generating just under $5 million in interest cost savings. And that wouldn't happen if there wasn't a perception out there that, we're financially stable and, and there isn't much risk, if you will, in the city repaying its obligations. The bonds that we issue are backed by the full faith and credit of the city. That's it. And, so the reception in the marketplace is that, Waterbury, as it has, will continue to meet its obligations. And we benefited with lower interest borrowing costs because of the continued progress that the city's made, in the past many years, continuing to move the city forward.
What was the interest rate that we were able to rebond at, and would that be a similar interest rate that we'd be bonding this current item at?
Well, we were at 2.5% in January, and there's, especially with the what's recently just happened, the short-term impact on the economy. Certainly the hope is that it's temporary, but there has been and there will continue to be pressure to not have interest rates escalate. I think, you can't guarantee any of this, but if we go to market 2 years from now, I would think we're probably going to be in a really good place from an interest rate standpoint.
Thank you, Mike, very much.
Anything else for Mr. LeBlanc? Alderman Zimmerman?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and thank you for all your hard work. We appreciate it, Mr. LeBlanc.
Thank you.
Just 2 quick questions. Where are we within the $22 million debt circumference of the 5%? Are we?
The 22 million is, right in line, really, on the low end of the 5%. Just if you took the $400 million budget and we're a little bit above that, as far as our overall budget, 5% puts us at 20 million. So we're right within, and we do have a debt management policy that is presented to the rating agencies, so they kind of know what goalposts, if you will, we've established for ourselves. And, we are right where we need to be in that 5 to 6% range. And again, we've, just issued bonds in January. These will be 20-year obligation bonds. So that's built into what the debt service is going to look like as we go forward. And, during the process that we went through back in late December into early January with the rating agencies, we laid out for them, what the future years look like, and in showing them how it is that, we are very well positioned to maintain that levelized debt service for the foreseeable future.
And then just one question on the $3 million that we're voting on. So $2 million this is the plan. $2 million for the roof, $1 million for other expenses. Hopefully, we'll have it ready to go after this. Right? That's the plan in total right now,
so-
unless something pops up or.
Yeah.
Okay.
Well, and just, I guess, to that point, so as the mayor mentioned, the Waterbury Development Corporation has gone through an RFP process for the selection of a company that would do the roof. And the costs at this point for the roof replacement is just a little under $2 million. I propose going with the $3 million to leave adequate contingency available, in that one of the unknowns at the moment is the condition of the underdecking of the roof. And to the extent that there may need to be additional costs borne to ensure that the new roof that is put on is supported by adequate decking, that's one of the reasons to leave some available flexibility within that authorization. And then additionally, there's some components attached to the upper part of where the roof is as we go forward with the project, it would be best if some of those things are taken care of as part of the roof replacement. So this just leaves a little bit of flexibility. At the end of the day, hopefully we're within the $2 to $2.5 million cost range at the end of the day. But I just wanted to leave adequate flexibility so that we wouldn't be restricted in moving forward with the full roof replacement.
Sure. So after the roof is on, we're able to get someone in there. Is that right? Am I understanding?
So
We're able, it's able.
Does the building need any additional work to be habitable after the roof?
Yeah,
is
like right after the
replaced?
roof is on, can they come in? Whoever the new person is.
I think that would come into, the costs associated that would be tied in with the fit out, eventually fit out for, the successful identified party that would be looking to occupy the space.
Thank you.
Okay.
Appreciate it.
Anything else? Alderman Sherman?
One last question. Will this contract be an at-risk contract for the contractor that receives this?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, from the standpoint of for the scope of work that's identified, yes. And as I mentioned, there's a couple components. The under roof decking, there's not a number on that at this point, so that will be an identified cost once there's an ability to thoroughly inspect the underdecking of the roof itself.
Understood. Thank you again, Mike.
Anything else? Alderman Lopez?
Thank you, Mr. President. Mike, as a follow-up question to Alderman Zimmerman, as the building stands right now, we have no chance of a private company coming in and investing money in it, right?
Yeah, I would think the odds are pretty slim at this point, yes. This has been a vacant, unattended to building for a very long time. There are issues with the roof, that certainly would compromise anything that could come of it within that facility itself. So this is really, establishing the baseline for protecting whatever investment is going to come forward after this. That roof has to be, again, if there's issues with the underdecking, that has to be secured, replaced to the extent that there's a need for replacing, and then, again, at that, having the roof replaced addresses essentially any of the current issues that are in play, be it as simple as the leaks itself, but I think more than anything, protects the investment that would come forward that would go into the fit out of the property. It's, this very simply, you have an ability for potential future interested parties to establish for them that you don't have to worry about the roof. That's been taken care of. That's one thing, and what you're left with then at that point is the interior and the wraparound fit out for, what would serve the best interests of the tenants that ultimately would take interest in the property for their occupancy going forward.
So this is our investment. We're investing, we're bonding about $3 million to invest in fixing this roof. And then later on, what we hope to do, what seems like it's going to happen, which I have no doubt that will happen, is that we're going to find a partner that comes in, and they're going to want to go in that building and open up a business, and at that point, we will still assist them if there's a need to. But right now, what we're doing is we're simply investing to make sure that that roof is properly fixed, and then hopefully we'll get someone in to come in and dance with us.
Yes.
Thank you.
Anything further? Hearing none, thank you. Then the motion on the floor is to approve old business item number 2, the bond authorization in the amount of $3 million for Phase 1 of the redevelopment of the former Animate property located at 698 South Main Street. A yes vote will be to approve and authorize the bonding, a no vote will be to disapprove it. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no.
Aye.
It was an aye, even though it came after I asked for no's. So the motion carries 15-0. The vote is unanimous. With that, I would entertain item number 15, which was the other item tonight that would have come to Committee of the Whole. As I've indicated, we're going to hold, and we'll deal with that when we do the executive session on the Watertown lawsuit. So with that, I would entertain a motion, Alderman Brunelli, to come out of the Committee of the Whole.
So moved.
Second.
Motion having been made and seconded by Alderman Lopez. Is there any discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no. We are now back to the regular order of business. I'll slow down, Alderman Kula, so you can catch up with us. I think there's a little delay. With that, we will return to the regular order of business, and we will recess into committees. We'll do finance first and intergovernmental second. I just want to point out items 13 and 14 are education items that have come to us. The Board of Education was supposed to have met last Thursday, but they chose to cancel their meeting because of the COVID-19 issue, and they did ask if we would approve those subject to the Department of Education actually asked if we would approve those subject to Board of Education approval at their next meeting. I think historically we have told them we weren't going to continue to do that, but under these circumstances, I think it will make some sense to do that, and they're necessary things once they get approved to go forward. So the items 13 and 14 would be to approve them subject to Board of Education approval at their next meeting. And with that, we'll adjourn into committees, and we'll start with Finance.
I call the Finance Committee meeting to order. Item number 1, your Finance Committee respectfully recommends that the Board of Aldermen approve the capital projects funding source change in the amount of $1,774,414 of the city's local capital improvement fund as submitted by Sarah R. GEARY, Policy and Budget Management Specialist.
So move.
We have a motion and a second. Discussion?
Bradley's brand new.
Alderwoman Zimmerman.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I just have a question, so I'm trying to understand this being new and for the sake of the residents understanding this. So we had an MSRA grant, which is normally for roads and sidewalks. We asked probably to have it waived for the items that are on the listed here. We couldn't get it waived, so now we're asking for approval to use this out of the capital improvement fund or budget. Is that correct?
Sarah Gary, Policy and Budget Management Specialist. That's correct. The State Municipal Revenue Sharing Grant for capital projects has been used in the past for some of these projects that we're asking you to switch the funding source for. The state had granted waivers in previous years. We've learned that it's unlikely that the state will grant waivers for these projects any longer because the state bonds for these projects and likes to see projects with 20-year life cycles. So we're asking for approval to change the funding source from the state grant to our local capital improvement fund. The state grant funding won't be lost. We'll be allocating that to projects in the FY21 capital budget, and we'll be putting it towards projects like paving and sidewalks.
Okay, and then, so I'm looking at the, again, I'm newer, right, to the board. So I'm looking at the capital improvement budget, and I'm looking at the items, and they seem to be on this budget. So does that mean they're already approved, and we're just approving to use the funds? How does that work?
All of these projects were approved in the fiscal year 20 capital budget.
but they were approved with the state grant as the funding source. So we're asking you to change the funding source to our local capital improvement fund. So yes, all of these projects were approved, but with a different funding source.
Okay. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Further discussion? Alderman Sherman.
Thank you, Sarah. I'm asking for clarification. So this isn't in addition to, for say, the 12 cruisers as to what's on the capital improvement? This is just moving the funds to cover that?
That's correct. There were 12 police cruisers, for example, funded in the FY20 capital plan. The funding source was intended to be the state MRSA grant. We don't think we'll be getting a waiver for that project, so we're asking you to switch the funding source to our capital improvement fund.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Further discussion? Alderwoman Cotto.
Thank you. So I understand that the reason why we are requesting to transfer those funds is because we have learned that we might not be granted a waiver for FY20. If we approve the transfer, the money will be utilized for the same purposes?
That's correct. You're approving using our local capital improvement fund for all of these projects.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Further discussion? Alderwoman Zimmerman.
I just have a question. There's just a lot of new vehicles on here, so I'm just wondering, why can't we put these in the budget for for next year?
So typically, we have vehicles in every capital plan. These are the vehicles that were included in the fiscal year 20 capital plan. So we're asking for approval to use the local capital improvement fund in order to be able to set up these projects now and to start purchasing these vehicles. All of these vehicles are vehicles that we purchase on almost an annual basis. For example, the police cruisers, we try to replace 10 to 12 cruisers each year, and they have a life cycle of about 3 years.
Sure, I mean, like the supervisor SUVs for $94,000, fire 2 sedans for $54,000, all right.
So we try to keep up with an annual replacement cycle. So if we didn't switch the funding source from the MRSA grant to the local capital improvement fund, we would miss a whole year of purchasing vehicles. We will include new vehicles in the FY21 capital plan, which will be submitted to you in the next week or so.
And do we have anything on a lease program for vehicles under fire and police, or?
We don't lease vehicles.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Further discussion? Alderman Sherman.
Thank you again, Mr. Chairman. Are there items that will be taking these funds away from?
No, we do have funding. We do have a balance in the local capital improvement fund. It just benefited from a deposit related to the sale of the Rose Hill property. So the funding is available within our local capital improvement fund.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Further discussion? President Podolsky.
Thank you. Sarah, I just want to say, I think you guys do a great job with this stuff. You've been very creative in using the state money to help handle these capital costs and expand what we can do here in the city. And so, unfortunately, this time, it just wasn't so creative with the new administration coming in, but I think it's great that we keep doing it. I do want to point out to Alderman Zimmerman's question, when we got here in 2002, we found the fleet, every vehicle in the city's fleet was in huge disrepair. They hadn't been kept up like many of the capital projects. And over the last 20 years, and especially over the last 8 years in this administration, we have made great efforts to maintain our capital in this city, and that requires annual updates. You have to purchase new vehicles. In those days, I mean, they were literally taking parts off cars and putting police cars together that way, and it's just not the way to run a public safety department. So I think it's important that we maintain that annual upgrade of all of our capital the same way we've been trying to upgrade the school buildings with windows and paving as much roadway as we can do every year and all of those things. So I commend you for being as creative as you can to get it done, and sometimes when the creativity doesn't work, we just have to fall back and do it the old-fashioned way. So thank you.
Thank you.
Further discussion? Hearing none, we have a motion and a second. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Opposed, no. Motion carries.
Thank you.
Item number 4, your Finance Committee respectfully recommends that the Board of Aldermen approve a salary range adjustment for Water Superintendent. Current salary range is $97,000 to $120,000. Recommended new salary range would be $125,000 to $180,000 as submitted by Scott P. Morgan, Director of Human Services, Office of the Civil Service Commission.
So move.
We have a motion and a second. Discussion? Alderwoman Cotto. Is anybody here from Civil Service, representing Civil Service? Oh.
Good evening.
Hello. Scott Morgan, Director of Human Resources.
Thank you for being here.
You're welcome.
I have a question in regards to survey. I noticed the city and was looking up the population in each and every one of those cities. And it's very diverse. Some of them have many less residents that we have here in Waterbury. Others have about the same and others more, which make perfectly sense in order for us to have a better perspective of where we're standing in regards salary. Is there any other criteria that was utilized to do that survey with those specific cities?
Basically, the survey for the water superintendent, in many of the towns, there are a lot of positions that are similar. Most towns and cities have a police chief and a fire chief. And depending on the size, and except for maybe Fairfield County, the size drives a lot of the price ranges for the salary rates. In the case of a water superintendent, it's a little bit different because not every town has their own water service. And I've been before this body before to talk about when we had the WPC, same thing. Not every town has a water pollution control service. So basically, in this, there's not a lot of places to go to. So I went to the 5 largest water companies in the state that I could draw from as a comparator for the purposes of conducting a salary survey for this job.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Further discussion? I have one for you, Mr. Morgan. What are we paying what's the current salary right now, just for our current superintendent?
For the water superintendent, the current salary is $97,000 to $120,000.
No, what are we paying right now? Do you know?
We don't have a superintendent.
Oh, we don't have one right now?
No.
Not even a fill-in, okay.
No.
I apologize, thank you. Further discussion? Alderman Zimmerman.
It just seems like the range between 125 and 185 of $55,000 is an awful lot.
It's just driven by what other towns' salary ranges are. I always try to make sure, I'm very hopeful that we get somebody that comes with a lot of experience, a lot of training, a lot of education, which would, in a lot of cases, drive what a person would negotiate for a salary. I also like to leave a lot of room on the bottom. So if we get somebody who maybe has a lot of potential, it leaves us some room, or the mayor some room to negotiate a salary.
All right, thank you.
You're welcome.
And Scott, that's what I was trying to get at, by the way. Just because you give us a top salary range like that does not necessarily mean you're going to pay the new employee that.
You know, I would say in almost all cases, probably 90% of the cases, people don't start at the top. Occasionally they will, depending on the difficulty in recruiting somebody and/or perhaps the experience that they bring to the table. But in many times, people start in like the first 25th percentile to the 50th percentile.
Thank you. Further discussion? Hearing none, we have a motion and a second. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no.
No.
Motion carries.
Thank you.
Item number 6, your Finance Committee respectfully recommends that the Board of Aldermen approve the suspension of delinquent account balances as summarized in the fiscal year 2019-2020 suspense report summary as submitted by Frank Caruso Jr., Revenue Collection Manager. Can I get a motion? We have a motion and a second. Discussion? Hearing none, we have a motion and a second. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Opposed, no. Motion carries. Item number 10, your Finance Committee respectfully recommends that the Board of Aldermen vote not to reject the appointment of Robert Nernay as City Planner with the approved salary range of $85,000 to $120,000 as submitted by Scott P. Morgan, Director of Human Resources, Office of the Civil Service Commission.
So move.
We have a motion and a second. Discussion? Alderwoman Cotto?
Thank you.
Who's your question for, Alderwoman Cotto?
To Mr. Morgan. Okay. On the memorandum, it says that you will include the open competitive exam, a resume, and a contract of employment, but we just only got the open competitive exam. So since we didn't receive the resume and the contract of employment, I was wondering if you could give us a debrief in both.
The resume is not included?
No.
I thought it was, what was the question then?
If you could give us a debrief or at least make sure that we receive those two documents.
I will provide that.
Oh, Linda, you have to talk in the microphone.
We usually don't give you the contract. Your authority is to approve or not to disapprove the appointment. And
Yes.
we did include the resume. I apologize. We did send it in the package, or numerous copies of it. We have one here tonight, and I could probably run upstairs and get it for if you want. And the gentleman is here, too, as well, if you have any questions for him.
Absolutely, I appreciate it. I was wondering because it was stated in the document that those two were going to be included, and they were not.
If I could, I have a copy here. Would you like me to run down Mr. Nerney's experience briefly?
Absolutely, that would be great. Thank you.
Okay. Prior to coming to Waterbury, Robert Nerney was the Director of Planning and Land Use Management for the town of Wilton, Connecticut from October 2001 to his appointment here. Prior to that, he was the town planner for the town of Southington, Connecticut from October of 1993 to 2001. And prior to that, Robert Nerney was the Deputy Director of Planning for the city of Nashua in Nashua, New Hampshire from 1984 to 1993. Mr. Nerney has a Master's of Science in Community and Regional Planning from the University of Texas in Austin, and a Bachelor of Arts in Urban Affairs from the University of Rhode Island in Kingston, Rhode Island. And he's a member of the American Planning Association, the Connecticut chapter of American Planning Associates, American Institute of Certified Planners, and Urban Land Institute, Westchester and Fairfield chapter.
Thank you so much.
You're welcome.
Further discussion? Alderwoman Zimmerman.
So just understand, you've chosen this person. We're approving the person you chose for this position, right? That's how this works, being new. I'm just asking.
Actually, you're not disapproving. It would take 11 votes to disapprove his appointment.
Right. Okay.
Yeah.
It's the opposite of approval.
Yeah, you're not disapproving. Yeah.
Got it. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Further discussion? Hearing Alderman Brunelli.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I just wanted to say I sat at a few meetings with Bob. He's more than competent, very good listener, knows the rules and regulations, and he's a fine gentleman, so I highly approve him.
Further discussion? Hearing none, we have a motion and a second. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no. Motion carries.
Thank you, everyone.
Item number 12, your Finance Committee respectfully recommends that the Board of Aldermen approve a refund from Trinity Solar for a canceled electrical permit in the amount of $1,170. Permit number PR2019-0003528 regarding 54 Alpine Avenue, as submitted by E. Gil Graveline, Building Official, Department of Inspections.
So move.
We have a motion and a second. Discussion. Hearing none, we have a motion and a second. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no. Motion carries. Standing, your Finance Committee respectfully recommends that the Board of Aldermen approve and authorize the Director of Finance to make refunds to taxpayers representing overpayments of tax bills in the amount of $43,191.34 as submitted by Frank A. Caruso Jr., Revenue Collection Manager.
So move.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Discussion. Hearing none, we have a motion and a second. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no. Motion carries. Can I entertain a motion to adjourn?
Motion to adjourn. Second.
We are adjourned.
Where are you going? Want to go here?
Hey, Sandy, you want to sit
You
here?
reach?
It'd be easier for you, I think. I might do that, too. You got
I don't want you sitting here. You go up top.
Good evening, everyone. I call the Intergovernmental Committee to order. First item on the agenda is item number 7. Your Intergovernmental Committee respectfully recommends that the Board of Aldermen approve Amendment number 1 to the construction contract for Waterbury Active Transportation and Economic Resurgence, WATER, Project Task 2, Jackson Street Improvements, and Task 3, Meadow Street Improvements between the City of Waterbury and Guerrera Construction Company, Inc., as submitted by Salvatore D. Porzio, Project Manager, DPW. May I have a motion?
So moved.
I have a motion.
Second.
I have a motion and a second. Any discussions? Seeing none, all those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Next item on the agenda is item number 8. Your Intergovernmental Committee respectfully recommends that the Board of Aldermen approve the Energy Efficiency Service Letter of Agreement between the City of Waterbury and Eversource Energy. That's Energy Efficiency Project CT 20 P00007308 for the Waterbury Water Pollution Control Facility, as submitted by Christian J. Perez Camacho, WPCD, Primary Representative for the Waterbury Pollution Control Department. May I have a motion?
So moved.
I have a motion and a second. Any discussions? Seeing none, all those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries.
I'll bring them all over.
Next item on the agenda is item number 9. Your Intergovernmental Committee respectfully recommends that the Board of Aldermen approve a professional services agreement, RFP number 6536, for sanitary water pollution control department sewer flow monitoring between the City of Waterbury and Flow Assessment Services, LLC, as submitted by Christian J. Perez Camacho, WPCD Primary Representative, Waterbury Pollution Control Department. May I have a motion?
So moved.
Second.
I have a motion and a second. Any discussions?
Excuse me, I would like to comment something.
Yes, Mr.
regarding-
Camacho.
Yeah, I would like to clarify and make a correction in the executive summary that I presented to this board related to the total amount of the contract. In the executive summary, it says it's $358,000. However, the correct amount is the amount that's in the contract that was also submitted, which is $518,644.
Okay, so there's a change in, okay,
It was an error.
An error?
Type in the letter.
okay.
The correct amount is the one that's in the contract.
Okay, so can I have a motion for the amount that Mr. Camacho mentioned?
That is, yep, $518,644.50. So moved.
Second.
Okay, I have a motion and a second. Any further discussions? Seeing none, all those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Thank you. Next item on the agenda is item number 13. Your Intergovernmental Committee respectfully recommends that the Board of Aldermen approve an agreement with Crown Castle Fiber LLC for a 4-year period and the not-to-exceed amount of $361,200 as submitted by Carrie A. Swain Clerk, Waterbury Board of Education. May I have a motion?
I'd like to approve this item, subject to the Board of Education approval at their next regularly scheduled meeting. So moved.
Second.
I have a motion and a second. Any discussions? No. Seeing none, all those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Next item on the agenda is item number 14. Your Intergovernmental Committee respectfully recommends that the Board of Aldermen approve a construction contract with Environmental Corporation in the not-to-exceed amount of $738,318.46 to provide school security video surveillance and access control system expansion and upgrades as submitted by Carrie A. Swain Clerk, Waterbury Board of Education. May I have a motion?
I'd like to approve I'd like to move the approval of item number 14, subject to the Board of Ed approval at their next regularly scheduled meeting. So moved.
Second.
I have a motion and a second. Any discussions? Seeing none, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Next item on the agenda is item number 16. Your intergovernmental committee respectfully recommends that the Board of Aldermen approve the appointment of the following individual to noted commission position, to wit, as submitted by Neil M. O'Leary, Mayor of the City of Waterbury, Richard Scapini, Board of Assessment Appeals, term 3/12/2020 to December 31st, 2020. May I have a motion?
Thank you. I'd like to move not to disapprove the appointment of the individual as read.
Second.
I have a motion and a second. Any discussions? Seeing none, all those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. May I have a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Second.
Adjourned.
All right, with that, we'll return to the regular order of business, and the following items are on the consent calendar. Excuse me, item number 1 is on consent to approve capital project funding source change in the amount of $1,774,414 to the city's local capital improvement fund. Item number 2 is on consent to receive and place on file. Item 3 is consent to receive and place on file. Item 4 is on consent to approve a salary range adjustment for the water superintendent from $97,000 to $120,000 to a range of $125,000 to $180,000. Item number 5, consent to receive and place on file. Item number 6 is on consent to approve the suspension of the delinquent account balances as summarized in the fiscal year 2019-2020 suspense report summary. Item 7 is on consent to approve amendment number 1 to the construction contract for the Waterbury Active Transportation and Economic Resurgence Project, Task 2 Jackson Street Improvements and Task 3 Meadow Street Improvements between the City of Waterbury and Guerrera Construction. Item 8 is on consent to approve an energy efficiency services letter of agreement between the City of Waterbury and Eversource Energy. Item 9 is on consent to approve a professional services agreement. RFP number 6536 for sanitary sewer flow monitoring between the City of Waterbury and Flow Assessment Services, LLC. Item number 10 is on consent not to disapprove the appointment of Robert Nearney as city planner with the approved salary range of $85,000 to $120,000. Item number 11 is on consent to receive and place on file. Item 12 is on consent to approve a transfer or a refund from Trinity Solar for a canceled electrical permit in the amount of $1,170 regarding 54 Alpine Avenue. Item number 13 is on consent to approve, subject to Board of Education approval at their next meeting, an agreement with Crown Castle Fiber LLC for a 4-year period in the not-to-exceed amount of $361,200. Item number 14 is on consent to approve, subject to Board of Education approval at their next meeting, a construction contract with an environmental corporation in the not-to-exceed amount of $738,318.46 to provide school security video surveillance and access control system expansion and upgrades. Item number 15 is a hold. Item number 16 is on consent to approve the appointment of Richard Scapini to the Board of Assessment Appeals with a term of March 12, 2020 to December 31st, 2020. Item number 2, old business, is on consent to approve the bond authorization in the amount of $3 million for Phase 1 of the redevelopment of the former Animate property located at 698 South Main Street. Alderman Brunelli.
Motion to approve the consent calendar as read.
Second.
Motion to approve having been made by Alderman Brunelli and second by Alderman Lopez. Are there any additions or deletions to the consent calendar? Alderman Zimmerman.
Mr. President, I'd like to pull item number 4 from the consent calendar.
Okay, any other additions or deletions? Hearing none, then the motion on the floor is to approve the consent calendar as read with the exception of item number 4. A yes vote will be to approve the consent calendar. A no vote would be to disapprove it. All those in favor of approval signify by saying aye. Opposed, no. The motion carries. The consent calendar is approved. With respect to item number 4, the chair would recognize Alderman DiGioVanCarlo as chair of the Finance Committee. Actually, you know what? Let me do it this way. I'll entertain a motion, Alderman DiGioVanCarlo, to approve a salary range adjustment for the water superintendent from the current salary range between $97,000 and $120,000 to the new salary range of $125,000 to $180,000. So moved.
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
Motion having been seconded by Alderman Cotto, made by Alderman DiGioVanCarlo. Is there any discussion? No discussion? Right. The motion on the table then is to approve the salary range adjustment. A yes vote will be to approve it. A no vote will be to disapprove it. Let's do a roll call, presuming it's not going to be unanimous.
Alderman Bernelli.
Yes.
Alderwoman Cavallo.
Yes.
Alderwoman Cotto.
Yes.
Alderman DiGioVanCarlo.
Yes.
Alderman Lopez.
Yes.
Alderman Dorso. Alderman Matthews.
Yes.
Alderwoman Martinez McCarthy.
Yes.
Alderman Salvio. Alderman Nugent.
Yes.
Alderman Sherman.
Yes.
Alderwoman Zimmerman.
No.
Alderman Pernaruski.
Yes.
We have 14 yes.
14 yeses, 1 no. The motion carries. The salary range.
Alderwoman Weaver.
Yes.
Now it's 14 yeses and 1 no. The motion carries and the salary range is approved. With that, the chair would recognize Alderman DiGioVanCarlo for standing committees.
Thank you, Mr. President. Your Finance Committee respectfully recommends that the Board of Aldermen approve and authorize the Director of Finance to make refunds to taxpayers representing overpayments of tax bills in the amount of $43,191.34, as submitted by Frank A. Caruso, Jr., Revenue Collection Manager.
So move.
Second.
The motion having been made by Alderman Cotto and seconded by Alderman Weaver, is there any discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no. The motion carries. The refund is approved. With that, just a couple of things. I did want to point out to you that we had, at the last meeting, indicated we were going to have a budget presentation on March 31st to receive the budget, but obviously under the current circumstances, we're not going to go forward with that night. So the process that will happen is that the Budget Director, Sarah GEARY, will provide a PDF of the budget to the clerk's office, and then we'll have that sent out to all of the aldermen by email. So you'll get a copy of it hopefully on April 1st. And if we come together, and I expect we will, on April 6th, which is our next regular meeting, then we would have the mayor's presentation of the budget as a presentation is just part of that. So we won't have a special meeting. I would fully expect that if we do meet on the 6th, and I believe we will, especially if we can get the Zoom set up, we would not have to have anybody here. All the aldermen would be able to participate remotely, and it's been successful in other towns, and we'll get that up and running, so that'll make everybody's life easier. And presumably that's the way we will proceed until we're out of all of these restrictions, so we're not bringing a lot of people in and out of this building. I do want to thank you all for your cooperation tonight in trying to do the best as we can, the city workers and the aldermen, in trying to maintain social distancing. I don't think we were 100% at it, but I think we did a decent job. And I want to particularly thank the public for their cooperation this evening. This is very unusual, but I think we did the best we could to be as transparent as possible and maintain participation by the public. So thank you for that consideration, and we will see how that will work as we go to Zoom, because we will want to maintain that for the public speaking. And ultimately, depending on how long this goes, we may be doing the budget hearings that way as well, because we do have a deadline to get those done. Although it's been slightly extended, we're still going to need to get them done. So with that, I would ask you all to stay safe, to please follow the restrictions that are out there, to take them seriously. I think as members of the board, we're leaders in this community, and I think we need to just set an example. The worst thing that happens is everybody's wrong about this and we stay apart and nothing bad occurs. But the alternative is possible and very likely, I think. So I would ask you just to go out there and keep safe. And it will be over soon, and we are going to be back in business. So thank you all, and I will see you in 2 weeks. Alderman Brunelli.
Motion to adjourn.
Second.
Motion having been made and seconded by Alderman Lopez. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no. The motion carries and we're adjourned. Now I'll see you all in 2 weeks. Thank you.